The future of learning, that's what I talk about. I wonder if that means anything to you. Why is she talking about the future of school? Why is she talking about the future of learning? Well, I'll give you an idea about something. The other morning, yesterday, I decided to wake up for the England-Croatia game. Now, I'm not a person who can watch a game all the way through. So the last half hour, which turned into the last hour, was enough for me. Now, when I woke up, back in the day, you'd have to get your dressing gown on, you go to the living room, you turn the television on, you sit there nice and quietly and watch it. What did I do now? I wake up, I get my device of choice beside my bed, I open my device, it tells me, this game has already started. Where would you like to start? Would you like to go to the beginning? Would you like to go to where it's up to now? Where it's up to now, please, is where I'm going. But the whole idea of media and television has changed so much in the last 30 years. So if I was up here talking to you as on the future of television, you'd go, what? Future of television? Television is old. It is my generation who watches the news. Nobody else really watches the news, anyone younger than me. So the future of learning is a bit like that. Who knows in the future what school's going to be like? Who has any idea what education for our kids is going to be like in 30 years? School may not look like anything like school we have today, but we're always going to have learning because learning is a lifelong endeavour. Do you agree? That's right. So I always go back when I have my talks. Whoops, let's go this way. Start with why. This is Simon Sinek, leadership guru. He has this really simple statement. Don't you wish you were the person who came up with start with why? I do. He goes around and he talks about how we must start with the why. So often when we have vision and ideas, we go to the how, we go to the what. But actually we need to start with the why. So I'm going to start with my why. My why is Sophie. Wherever I go, wherever I speak, I always start with my why. And that's Sophie. She was born in 2009. Way before her, social media came on board a few years before her. She's always lived in a connected world. For her, she thinks about a technology about as much as she thinks about electricity when she switches on a light. It's an everyday thing for her. She's going to be in high school in about 2022, finish school in 2027, and then by 2030, she'll be in the workforce. What will the workforce be like for her? How will school today prepare Sophie for the workforce tomorrow? That's the big question that we're going to investigate today. So 2 simple ideas I have for you today, just to ponder. There's only a short amount of time, so you can just think about this. I'm going to talk about the content of learning and the context of learning. By content, I mean there is curriculum, there is stuff we need to learn, but it's how we learn it. And there's also the context of learning. How do teachers need to work for kids today? And how does the school need to be designed for learners today? So they're the 2 things I'm going to talk to you about. But I'm going to start here. Back in the 1960s, bowling alleys were all the go. People went to the bowling alley. Who has been 10-pin bowling this year? Oh, that's a good number of people. Nice. I bet you if we said this in the 1960s, there'd be a room full of people with their hand up, yeah? So bowling alley, to me, is the metaphor of school in the 1960s that doesn't need to be the metaphor for school today. You see, in a bowling alley, there's lane upon lane upon lane upon lane. The teacher, or the bowler, bowls down the English ball, might hit 4 pins, 5, all, none. Sounds like my bowling prowess, I must say. That not all of the pins get knocked down all the time. So we must think about how do we ensure that we've got an education system that is not like a bowling alley, bowling down ball, the English ball, the maths ball, the science ball, but how we think of it in a much broader way. So, lots of people have thought about the skills of the 21st century. We call them the 6 Cs, 4 Cs, 5 Cs. These skills are the ones that are the enduring ones that Sophie is going to need into the future. So these skills are the ones that we really think about in terms of what is driving our learning today. Is it the content of the curriculum, or is it the skills that the students are going to need in the future? So let's have a look at the context. These two things here, teacher practice and the learning environment, that's my work. That's the nature of my work. I call myself a translator. I work with, I'm a native speaker of education. I'm a learned speaker of the design world, design of learning and the design of the learning environment. So I work in these two spaces, and I work a lot with educators, I work a lot with architects. I get to travel the world, I see schools in a whole lot of different parts of the world. And I'm passionate about making learning relevant for Sophie and her peers. Sorry, that was one too early, wasn't it? I didn't explain that to you before, but that's what I do now. So I'm using this, I love the biblical analogy of we have new wine for new wine skills. Because kids today, the way they need to learn, it's new wine. But if we try and force that new wine into old-fashioned classrooms, old-fashioned teaching practice, the Bible verse says, one will be split and one will be spilt. Both are ruined. So if we're thinking about Sophie and what she needs for the future, we actually need to think about her in terms of what is the learning, what's the teaching practice that she needs, what's the learning environment that she needs. So I spend a lot of time thinking about this thing called learning design. I love the segue between last session, we talked about innovation, to innovation in education. And that is learning design. What learning design does is say, what's that user? What's that student? How do we engage that student? We're not bowling that bowling ball and hoping that we hit 60%. We're actually designing learning that hits as many kids as we possibly can so that every student comes out with a positive learning experience. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. There we go. So I think about new learning environments. I think about how can we design schools to look like that? So that kids come in and it's comfortable. They need to do didactic teaching, they need to see their teacher, they need to learn stuff, but they don't have to learn it in desks in rows. Oops. So here's what my work involves. We have, on the one side, we have the classes in rows, in classrooms along a corridor. And the other side, we think about, well, how do we rearrange it? How do teachers work differently? How can we get teachers working alongside kids? We can get instructive teaching. All of that happens. But what I've discovered is if you take the walls down, you don't necessarily get a change in practice. You actually have to do a whole lot of hard work to get the schools working in new ways. As you can see from that, there's didactic, the red and the yellow teacher, there's still didactic teaching happening. But the teaching and learning today is social. Learning is human, it's interactive. It's not just one person teaching. So we need to think about those things in terms of the design of the learning environment and then the teaching that happens inside. I'm just going to finish now. Back with Sophie. I want you to always think about, if you've been a teacher for a long time, you're awesome. You love kids. Is what you're doing actually hitting every kid, every student, every learner? What do you need to do in your learning so that those students who have been on the outliers, on the edge, how do you ensure that they're actually having a positive, awesome school experience as well? So I want to leave you with that. I'm easily contactable. That's how you find me. Love to hear from you via Twitter. Thanks very much, everyone.